Hello everyone and welcome to the next video. This one is going to be about creating components and inserting components. So let's talk about what a component is. A component is just another document referenced within another document. So for example, and it can be referenced into multiple documents. So let's say for this, it's a state standard, but this definition section, purpose section, condition section, all of these are all components. And they're components into the state standard. So just as, let's switch to national real quick. So just as let me grab one that already has content in it. That way we can make a document with it. Let's see here. This one will work. Okay, so we have these components are all referenced into this. Let's open it up into this national standard. Here it comes. So we have a definition section, a purpose section, a condition section, right? So now let me minimize this. We can make a documentation file. Is one example where this would be used. Maybe that's under an NDO role. So for an example here, let's make a documentation file. Now we have definition section, purpose section. So now I can right click and I can do replace from server. And I can navigate down and choose 374. I'm in the production environment. Let me change that. Well, here. So we can bring in 374 and then reference that component in. And then I can add a comment section under it and give comments in the documentation file. I could edit it and add comments. I could edit the standard through my documentation file. So any changes made in this definition section in the documentation file will also be reflected into the standard. And that will work for any of these. So I could do replace from server, and then I can also do create component. So I can make another component and save it. Not really something we'd want to do in this scenario. So let me discard changes here. Now let's say we wanted to make an O&M document. Now the first section of this O&M is one we can do create from server. So I can pull in, if I go to 374 again, I can pull in the operation and maintenance section from the standard and pull it directly into the O&M document. So now let's pull both of these up real quick. So now I have the standard on my right and I have the O&M document on my left. So if I edit this, immediately it's going to check it out. It's going to give me that check box here. And if you notice on the right, I also have the checkout button up here. Now if I add content here, dun, 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 and I now do right click and save and close, give it a few seconds here on the right side, but now we have add content here like magic. So that's not something we really want, right? We don't want, when I edit the O&M document, for it to change the standard itself. So I can, in the O&M specific example, I'm going to revert it back to how it was. Save and close. So to get rid of this extra content here. So in the event of an O&M document, I really want to pull in this component reference and then dereference it, because this is kind of just my starter to get started here. So in that scenario, I'd right click and do remove component reference. So now I have all of the content from the national standard, but it no longer impacts it because it's no longer referenced. So I can make any changes and nothing will affect the actual standard. And then again, I could make my own component of this if I wanted to, but there would be no need for this in that scenario. Another example of, let's go ahead and save and close this. I need a and again, I'm just going to highlight the standard name here and Control C and Control V. That way I don't have to actually spell it out. So another good example of this is the practice overview section here. Practice overview supporting document, sorry. And here we'll pull in the definition section from, we'll do replace from server for the definition. Well, again, we'll go and we'll choose the 374 2017 definition. And then we now have the definition section directly from the standard here. And it would work the same way. If I made any changes to the standard, it would make the same changes into the, so let's say in the standard, there was no period here. There's some extra white space. I'm going to add a period, and then I'm going to save and close. And then now, if we look here, boom, the period got added. Probably very small in the video, but a period did get added to the end of the component here. So you could make the practice overview section with the definition and not have to worry about later that, oh, I did have to update the definition. Let me now go and update the practice overview document as well. That should automatically happen unless you dereferenced the component. Another example, I'm just going to close all these out here, is now we have, for specifically the ADM, we have the NHCP index. Now this one is basically, if you notice here, there are 4 tables here. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, the lead disciplines table, and the table of CPS. So let me check out the index here. So this is a little different than a section component. These are now table components. So each one of these is a table component that can be referenced in another document or updated via a different system. So this, the table of practices, that gets updated with the CPS management button. I don't actually know if there's any changes, but I'll run, if I go to the CPS management as the ADM, and I do, let me see if I can get this both to show. So I'm going to hide my preview sides here. I just want to see the table right now. Okay. So if I run the update NHCP index as the ADM, any changes should automatically happen here in the table. There probably weren't any, but if there were, they would have reappeared here. So the button updated the table, which then would update the document, instead of having someone to manually update fields on here. So that's just a quick little video on how to create a component and how to insert a component. Let's just go through, I went through it in the WebAuthor video, but I can make my own table reference here. So if I wanted to add a new table, actually I'm going to do it in a better, I'll use a better example here. So if I go to Farmstead Energy again, and let's say in my standard, I know it's released, but we'll use it, is that I made a table in the specifications area, and this table, sorry, I'm going to go to insert table, give it a header row, and this is going to be farm size, number of cows. Okay, so I can do like 1 acre, 5 cows, and I can add multiple rows below, 2 acres, 15 cows, etc. So I can now right click and I can do create table component. Now that's going to save the table to my collection. I don't actually have permission to do that. I'll fix this, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to switch it to the ADM folder, just so we can continue with this demo. So I'm now going to have a table called farm size. You can name it whatever you want, right? I'm going to save that. Now I will save my component, and I'll save my standard. Okay, now if I wanted to make a practice specification, here we go. And I don't know how this would actually, you would make the document however you needed to. How many cows per acre? And then I could do insert. I could do insert table from server, do normal. And then I could get the farm size table that I created in the standard and bring it into my specifications. And then now, if one of them got updated, it would update the other one. So if you needed to update it more and you wanted to leave the standard as it is, that's where you would do the remove component reference. So you're going to do remove component reference when you want to update the table, but only in the document that you're in now. If you wanted to keep both of them updated, then you would edit the component, and that would update both or any document that uses that component together. So that is just another scenario on using components. I hope that helps on scenarios where you'd want to use components and documents that use components. So O&M, practice overview, O&M would use the O&M section. The practice overview uses the definition section. The documentation file uses all of the sections from the national standard. You can, if I switch back to the national standard real quick, you can get very granular on what sections you make. So I can go all the way down to heading 3 and heading 4, and I can make a component at this level. And again, for the same reason, you can reference it back to another standard. Once it's a separate document, you can reference it where it needs to be. If you don't really plan on using these subsections that much, you can really just create the component at the full level, and that'll include all of the subsections. But if you had a very specific use case where you needed the separate sections, like in the documentation file or something, then you could create component references of every section. All right, thanks, and see you in the next one.